Homeless man. It all started when I was bitten by a man, a homeless man. Yes, it sounds crazy, but what doesn't happen on a crowded bus in the morning? I make my way to the exit, and this homeless man with a dirty bag behind him, well, he did not want to make a step to the side. I take him by the shoulder, and he takes it and bites my hand. Well, there are all kinds of crazy people on earth. I thought then and ran to work. I was already late, about 10 minutes late, which means that, mistress, she's a bitch, she'll yell and come up with 100 idiotic errands. Like arranging the teapots and irons in the window in some special order, counting carts and other such nonsense. Yes, I, like many others, graduated from university and now work as a sales assistant. I rent one-room apartment on the outskirts and hope that in a couple of years my life will completely change for the better. But today I definitely didn't make it into the top of the best days of my life. The boss, Aka the bitch, scolded me like a schoolboy and pelted me with tasks of undeniable importance, so there, she decided to punish me. You can't do anything, you have to comply, or you will be fired, and I did it. Fighting her will only make it worse. She's just stupid and mean. And through it all, I completely forgot about that lunatic with his bite. It wasn't until late at night, as I was walking home from the hateful store, that I felt my hand itch somehow uncomfortably. But I didn't pay much attention to it. I stood at the bus stop and looked at the various ads posted on the poles. They offer a husband for an hour, and massage at home and treat alcoholism quickly, cheaply and for a long time, help everyone lose weight quickly and get rich quickly, and a lot of other nonsense. And, of course, a missing persons ad too, no way without that. From the photo printout, a man with glasses, wearing a stupid green tie, looked at me. We ask for help in finding our father and husband, read the mournful headline. Apparently, the man was an alcoholic. No, but he didn't look like an alcoholic. Oh, maybe he had a mistress. Such decent specimens often have some sort of dirty secret. Oh, what the hell is going on in my head after work? Why should I think about it? Why do I need it? Well, here comes the bus, and I forget that thought right away. At work, apparently, I was so exhausted that when I got home, I couldn't even make myself a meal. And immediately I laid down on the bed and went right to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, it was 4 in the morning. I was terribly shaken and had a headache. Strangely enough, somewhere around my jaw it was already getting hard. It was like something had swelled up in it. And I didn't have enough toothache, I thought. I've been very afraid of dentists since childhood. And there is no extra money for it. So I took pain pills and went back to bed. However, I did not fall asleep immediately, only before dawn I was able to sleep. My arm was tired of itching. The alarm clock sounded. I got up with great difficulty. I splashed cold water on my face, I hardly get dressed and quickly ran to the bus stop. This time I wasn't late, but either I was glitching or I don't know if I was. The passengers were looking at me sideways somehow. They looked at me sideways and looked away. They looked better in the morning. Hey, Igor, did you get stung by wasps? My partner Vitek asked me at work. I wanted to tell him that his jokes were idiotic as usual, but he nodded at my jaw and I instinctively ran my hand over it. It was really swollen in all directions. I glanced at my reflection in the window and then I fell out. How had that happened overnight? My jaw was swollen, like it had been drugged. It was heavy, hard to move, and it itched terribly. What a thing. I didn't know then that it was not the end, but quite the opposite. I had barely finished my shift because Mikolovna would definitely not let me go. And that night the utter shitshow began. My jaw was already aching and humming on the bus, and it seemed to me that it was about to burst from the inside. I grabbed my face, it was burning. The passengers were staring at me like I was a leper. My eyes were blurring and I was almost whimpering in pain. I literally crawled up to the apartment, clinging to the walls and banisters, and almost collapsed from the last steps. My temperature seemed to be skyrocketing. I threw on everything I could, but it didn't help. I was thrown around in my bunk in a delirium, and I was also having glitches. I felt as if someone was breaking into my apartment, howling under the windows and doors, scratching. And at the same time, my jaw was tearing stronger and stronger, and I could clearly feel that something was rapidly growing in it. And it stank. Torn flesh, and I don't know how to explain it, infection. A nasty, sweet smell, incomparable to anything else. When I was thrown onto the floor by the bed, I knew I had to call an ambulance. It took forever for the paramedics to get there, and by then I was howling in pain. An abscess, a malformed jaw, I heard vaguely. But what the fuck, when all my 23 years it was perfectly normal. What the fuck is happening to me? I was rushed to the hospital, doctors and nurses were running around, and there was a commotion. There was clearly something wrong with me that I, despite my floating consciousness, understood from the scraps of their conversations, and then I was hit with such pain that my jaw, ready to explode. I was injected with a lethal dose of painkillers and I began to pass out. We need to call in specialists from the maxillofacial department. This is some kind of anomaly, I heard, but I couldn't say anything. The second row of teeth just ripped the poor guy's jaw, and what he waited so long. And I wish that phrase had stuck with me before I passed out. I came to my senses because I could smell it. The disgusting smell was coming from my mouth, from my face. It was unbearable. It smelled like an infection and like a dog or something. I unclenched my hands and touched my face. It was all covered with tiny cuts, swollen, and the skin was rough and flaky. Fear made me want to know what was wrong with my still beautiful face. Why did they just leave me lying there? I practically threw myself off the bunk, yanked the IV out of my hand, and crawled to the door. There was no one in the hallways, just the nurse behind the front desk, staring lazily at the TV. I moved toward her, and for some reason my eyes stopped on the picture on the screen. It was a picture of a man in his 50s, with bald hair and a bow tie. Nothing special, an ordinary man. Only he seemed familiar to me for some reason. Professor Donald Bitten, missing for more than 2 weeks. His family and colleagues are asking for his help in finding him. After all, according to the latest information, he may need help. Donald Bitten was working on an unknown vaccine and, according to colleagues, used it on himself. It is unknown what condition he may be in. Now this man, I saw him. I saw his picture on the pole on my way home from work the day before yesterday. I also noticed a ridiculous bow tie around his neck. And now, as I felt the growing pain in my jaw, I realized that I had seen him in person the very morning I had been bitten on the bus by what I thought was a crazy homeless man. And that's when it all started. That was it. I didn't have time to continue my thought. The nurse somehow sensed that I was standing and looking at her from behind and turned around. In a second she looked frightened and screamed loudly. It hurt in my ears and made me want to clamp her mouth down harder. It made my jaw hurt too. I didn't know how, so I rushed toward her, throwing everything around her in one fell swoop. The girl screamed even harder, and I roared like an animal. And, hell, I would have thrown myself at her. I really would have rushed and grabbed her, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw a creepy face in the reflection of the night glass. All swollen and blistered, with torn cheeks and protruding sharp teeth, and it was my face. What had I become? What horrible contagion had gotten on my face from that ghoul when it bit me? I recoiled from the girl and rushed away. I have to find that damn professor. He knows, he must know how to cure me. I go outside at night. I sneak down back alleys and sniff around. Only the more I do it, the more I feel hunger. It's unlike anything I've ever felt before. It's animal-like, maddening. It baffles me, and I've gone crazy several times already. Why am I looking for this Zverev? To get at his throat. Two low shadow flashes around the corner, and my stomach lets out a rumbling growl to eat. It's a girl in her 20s. Chubby, in a short skirt, with appetizing legs. I don't realize I'm tearing into her. I don't understand why she's screaming. I quickly shut her up, gnawing into her neck. I don't remember the arrival of the police, the ambulance. My mind is clouded, and all I know is that this terrible hunger, it will come back. It will come back soon. And then no bars, no hospital walls will hold me back. After all, my body is changing. I'm getting stronger, I'm getting less and less affected by the drugs. And who knows, maybe tomorrow I'll break free again. Look.